CanHammer is a gaming podcast from the Great White North. See canhammer.ca for more info.
All right, Phil, got a AOS joke for you.
Ooh, goody.
So, a Skaven warlord walks into a dark elf magic shop. Hey, have you got any warpstone? The elf replies, no, sorry, mate. We sell only potions. So the Skaven leaves. Next day, Skaven warlord comes back to the shop. Have you got any warpstones? No, sorry, we only sell potions. Skaven leaves the shop again. The next day, Skaven warlord comes back in. Have you got any warpstone? The elf grabs the Skaven. Look, I've told you before, we sell potions, not warpstone. If you ask for warpstone one more time, I'm going to spear your tail to the wall. Skaven warlord leaves, looking quite sheepish. Next day, the Skaven warlord returns. Have you got any spears? The elf replies, no, sorry, we only sell potions. The Skaven warlord grins and says, in that case, can I have some warpstone?
This one had setup and everything. You were like a masterful storyteller there.
Well, I can't claim to have made that up, but yeah, seemed to fit with the Shadespire theme.
Underworlds, yes, indeed.
All right, well, welcome everybody to CanHammer episode 122. As you may have noticed, Chris is not here. He is currently being taken over by the latest Nurgle plague, as well as his whole family, apparently, as is fitting with all the recent Nurgle releases. So, he's really living the hobby. So I'm joined tonight by a special guest star, Phil.
Yeah.
You may remember Phil from such movies as my Beastclaw Raiders kicked your Flesh Eater Court's butts, and my Tyranids got stomped by a Shadow Sword. But
is that one up? I don't even remember seeing that one.
No, I think we didn't film that one.
But they did get stomped by that Shadow Sword. Oh man, did they ever?
So yeah, Phil, if you've watched our YouTube channel, you've seen Phil on some bat reps before, and this is his first time on the podcast. So welcome, Phil.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I listen to it all the time.
And to Phil's amazing credit, he literally is 2 days postpartum. Well, not him postpartum, but he just had his second kid, and here he is podcasting. So well done, sir. Well done.
Thank you. You can't. I'm a seasoned hobby dad, so I think when my first son was born, I still managed to get a game in. Like I had the Baby Bjorn strapped on, and we were just rolling dice and playing like Age of Sigmar. Actually, no, I think at the time it was probably 40K or something. But yeah, I managed to get some games in, and I would actually do some hobby with my son and my in the Baby Bjorn, like painting and stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
dedicated.
So before we start, just shout outs to a new patron, Andy Mudge, who pledged a couple of days after the last podcast. So thank you very much, Andy, for your support. And thank you, of course, to our existing patrons who help us to keep producing the content and to help us up our game all the time. So thank you very much for all our supporters. Phil is new to the podcast, so we're going to let Phil tell us a little bit about where he comes from in the hobby, and take it away, Phil.
Oh, the history of the hobby. I actually started playing 40K when I was living in Vancouver. So this was a good, feels like 10, 12 years ago. So I was in Vancouver, and then a buddy of mine came back from France with some French White Dwarf magazines, because we were working on a show at the time. That had a lot to do with the TV series that had a lot to do with orcs and that kind of stuff. So he brought these back for inspiration. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. These white dwarfs are great. And then that kind of got me to go to Metrotown, which was where the GW store was there. And then I picked up the Assault on Black Reach, like that Orc versus Space Marine box set. So that's how it started. Just I think for the first year that I got into the hobby, it was just about painting and assembling models. I might have played maybe one game. And then when I moved to Ottawa, maybe 8 years ago or something, that's when I really started playing. I would go to the Games Workshop store to play, and then do tournaments, and then that's how I really got into it. So
All right, and you used to play fantasy as well, right? And now Sigmar. When did that start?
I've played everything. So the first game that I got into was 40K, but I didn't play. Actually, the first game that I played was Warhammer Fantasy. So, for some reason, I couldn't find any 40K players. So I had my first 40K army was Orcs. My first Warhammer Fantasy army was Warriors of Chaos, and then my first game of fantasy was at a tournament. So I just straight up went to a tournament, and then I got like smashed. But I played fantasy for a long time. I have a lot of armies for 40K and for fantasy and for teams for Blood Bowl and Shadespire, and so I kind of play it all. It's great. Yeah. And then when fantasy switched to AOS, that's when I really really liked AOS a lot. Like I never really liked the game for fantasy. Like I thought it was really like I just wasn't good at it. It was like list building was beyond me, and I just couldn't wrap my head around the strategy. So I would just get like murdered pretty badly when I was playing. So it feels like AOS is just like my level of like, I think it's strategic and stuff, but it's I don't know. I just click with that game better. So
yeah. So what are you playing most of these days, other than Shadespire, of course, which is why you're here?
I think AOS now. Like I played a lot of 40K last year. I think that was like when the new edition dropped. So I kind of flip flop. So I'll play like 40K for like half a year, and then I'll swap and just play AOS for half a year. And so I think now this year my New Year's gaming resolution is that I just want to play a lot of AOS. Like so I have a few army projects that I want to get done. So I think that moving forward it'll be mostly AOS going into this year, and Shadespire.
Cool. So would you consider yourself a hobbyist first, a gamer first, or a fluff bunny first?
I'm a 50-50 split between gamer and hobbyist, because I think I don't hobby unless I game. So the games are like my motivation to hobby. So whenever like there's like, oh, we have to, we're gonna play a game like at your house or something, like then that gives me my hobby on. Or when there's like one of the CanHammer tournaments, like that's a great way to spur me into like painting a whole bunch of stuff. So and then the fluff is just it's not really like I like it, but I don't do a lot of it. So
cool. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll just go straight into hobby. So what kind of hobby have you been doing, Phil?
I've been building your Archeon. Like I think you lent that to me to assemble like half a year ago or something, and it was sitting on my desk. So I'm wrapping him up, and then I am painting the new Nurgle stuff, Maggotkin book that came out. So I'm wrapping up my first Feculent Gnarlmaw, and then tomorrow I'm gonna go pick up my new Great Unclean One and Ploppity Bile Spitter, whatever it's called, and a bunch of the new hero characters. So that's my project of the year. I have a pretty sizable Nurgle army that I haven't really played in AOS. So I'm gonna give it because I really, really, really like that book a lot. It's super fun. So
yeah. I think I bought that like before 8th came out. I was heavy into Shadespire, and so I bought that Archeon, June last year, right before 8th came out, with some Varangard as well, and I literally never opened it. So I'm like, "Hey, Phil, you want to put this together for me?"
Yeah, and I will paint it. I mean, it's a great model. Like it's super cool. So yeah.
Awesome. Anything else you've been up to?
I still want to. I finished painting for my Shadespire. I painted most of the warband. The only warband I'm missing is my skeletons. I haven't painted them yet. So I'm working on the Sepulchral Guard or on my painting station. What else is on there? I have a whole big Lizardman army, a Seraphon army that I'm working on, but that's like a slow process. Like I'm taking my sweet time on that. Like there's too many skinks to paint, so I'm not really motivated on painting 80 skinks. So I always have a bunch of stuff on my table. So
yeah, Sepulchral Guard doesn't take a long time to paint, depending on how neat you want to be and how nifty.
I mean, Shadespire is we'll get into the game in a bit, but like as a hobby side project, like I would just find painting warbands for Shadespire is so it's amazing. Like it's like 3 to 5 models or 6 models, I think, with skeletons.
Very accessible.
And I hadn't painted orcs in forever, so I got to paint some orcs. I hadn't painted Khorne warriors in a while, so I got to paint those. I hadn't painted Stormcast, so I got like a little tasters of. It's a nice like taster of painting some models. I've always wanted to paint skeletons, and I just never did. So now I get to paint skeletons. So
yeah, I think Chris got sick because he's been burning the midnight oil at both ends, trying to paint like 2,000 dwarves for LVO, and just caught up to him in the end.
Yeah, so that's especially like painting battle line. Like when you start a new army, like that's the, especially if you're going to do big hordes or big regiments of stuff, it gets a bit tedious. Whereas like for the Maggotkin stuff, like all I get to paint is I have my whatever 80 plague bearers, I have my plague drones, and nurglings. So I have like all the kind of the straight boring stuff. So all I get to do now is like paint like the cool new heroes and the cool new characters and stuff. So
yeah, cool. Well, since the last podcast, I have been on a building marathon.
When are you not on a building marathon?
Well, I go through phases where I build a lot and then where I paint a lot. Sometimes I need a break from one or the other. And so for the last 3 weeks, I've literally just been building my ass off. So, and the other thing that was bothering me is like, I can't walk around my table because it's blocked by boxes of stuff I need to build, going back as far as like 6 months. So I was like, okay, screw this. So I finished building the Thunderhawk. That was over Christmas. I got the extra bits I was missing from Forge World, plopped them in, and then I was like, okay, I need to build all of these models so that I can walk around my table. So I have built, in the last 3 weeks, I have built a Falchion, which is that giant Space Marine
that's a sweet one.
Tank, 3 Sicarans.
Oh, shit, yeah.
I just finished building a Macarius Vulcan, which is like a Death Corps of Krieg sort of version of the Stormlord.
Amazing.
I built 2 Whirlwind Scorpiuses, Relic Scorpiuses.
Wow.
I built 3 Lemon Russ tanks, and I built something else. I can't remember. Some robots.
Jeez.
And
I do like building sprees. They're fun. It's nice to alternate between building and painting, and
especially Forge World, because it takes extra steps to build it. You got to clean it and cut it and dry it, and so you kind of get in this assembly line of building Forge World. Yeah. And you already got all your rasps and stuff out, so you might as well just keep going. So in this sort of Forge World building spree, I got all this done. And then we've had it's normally pretty cold here, but we've had a couple of over 0 days.
So spray painting weather. Yeah, I remember. I think there was a day I saw you spray painting stuff, and I'm like, cool. I'm gonna I had a bunch of stuff that was just waiting for, because in cold weather, like you take your spray paint out and spray stuff in the cold, and it comes on thick.
Yeah, you can't do it. Yeah, so I sprayed. I went through 2 cans of Dark Angel, like Caliban Green, and I think the Thunderhawk took almost 3/4 of a can just itself.
Those colored spray paint cans really
so
they revolutionized the way that I hobby. You save so much.
You just try base coating this thing with a brush. Take you hours.
my Sylvaneth were so much faster to paint because I could just go Mornfang brown, and then after that you start to then you start picking out things and highlighting and doing all the fun stuff. So but yeah. Especially them Necrons, anything that has what's that new one, the Custodies? Yeah,
don't steal my thunder for later. So,
okay.
So painting wise, I'm almost finished these 3 Lemon Russes. They in my usual Catechin scheme, and I've got the what's it called? Iron Skull's Boys sitting on my desk as my next painting job, because then I'll be caught up.
So much fun.
I want to get them done before the next warbands come out, which might be in 4 weeks time. So that's kind of my next painting project, and then eventually I'll get around to painting these massive Forge World things. But and I still got 3 Fire Raptors to paint. Oh man, jeez! But they're primed and assembled, yeah. Oh yeah, one of them is done. I did that a long time ago, but 2 of them are primed and ready to paint. They don't take long to paint because they're just black, but still.
3 Fire Raptors, 3 Sicarans. Those are all.
Yeah, so I've got this crazy Dark Angels, all Forge World, all Relic army. It's a stupid idea, but it's funny.
Hey, I mean, they're great models and they're fun. So
yeah, well, if I'm bringing that to P&P, I might just bring that just for funsies.
Cool.
All right, cool. So that wraps us up on the hobby. We're just going to talk about a few things here that's going on around CanHammer. So just want to mention, if you haven't seen it already, Scary, of course, from Scarredcast, has started writing on our blog. I didn't even know we had a blog on our website, but we do. And Scary has posted his first post last week up there, just introducing himself, and he hopes to put something up there every week. So do check out the website, canhammer.ca. You'll see Scary's post up there. And, of course, check out his channel, Scarred Cast, on YouTube. Speaking of Scary, he, of course, is running the Barrie Bash in about just over a month away at the end of February. This is a hopefully an ITC major up in Barrie, Ontario. If you're anywhere near the Toronto or Barrie area, please check it out on his website and on Facebook and sign up and go. It's always a fantastic event, and there's still space up there, so please check out the Barrie Bash and go get your ITC on. I guess that will be actually after LVO, so that will be the first large Canadian event of the 2018 ITC season. So there's a good chance to get some early points there for next season. More locally here in Ottawa, we have Power Fist and Psychers 10, which is on February 10th. It is actually sold out currently. There's only one person on the waiting list, but we usually have some drops. So if you do want to come to P&P 10, please sign up at canhammer.ca and we'll pop you on the wait list. And of course, if there's massive demand, then I'm currently on the list to play, but I'll be TOing, so I can always step away. But we are actually running ITC this time just to try it out. As well, all the ETC stuff's not ready, so we decided to try out the ITC Champions missions this time. So P&P 10, check it out if you want to come. I'll just mention CanHammer Team Tournament, which is definitely a larger than it was last year. We have 122 teams, so that's 110 people signed up. And usually it's 100% attendance because nobody wants to leave their team in the lurch. But 5-man teams, so we have 22 teams, and we sold out in 8 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people.
8 minutes, 22 teams, 110 people. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It was frantic. So that's great. That's going to be, of course, in Cambridge, Ontario at the end of April. It's going to be lots of fun there. And then just very early mentions of Capital City Bloodbath, the big wargaming kind of event that we hold in Ottawa every summer. It's going to be kind of mid-August this year. The dates are not fully finalized yet, but it will be the mid-August. We're hoping to break the major mark this year for ITC for Warhammer 40K. And of course, we have Sigmar and War Machine and Batman, and we're thinking of other games that we can bring in as well. So big event, middle of August in Ottawa. Some big names coming up and coming over from the UK as well this year.
Wow.
So should be pretty good.
I basically build my my summer vacation schedule around making sure that I'm in town for CanHammer. I think one year I missed it, and it broke my heart.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe we could redo our doubles this year.
Did we? No, did we win? No, we got our teeth smashed in pretty bad. Eh? We got a few sneaky wins in, but no, this year is my it's going to be my AOS year. So I think the year before I played AOS, then this year I had played 40K with you in the doubles, and then this year will be an AOS year. So
all right. So we're going to stop right now for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hey guys, Martin here from wargamesuk.co.uk. Proud to sponsor their boys at CanHammer. Come check us out for some great discounts on all your hobby goodness and needs.
And we're back. Of course, big shout out to Martin over at Wargames for being one of our sponsors. They just held a very successful tournament called the Last Chance Open, which they hold every year, like the week or 2 weeks before LVO. And I know a whole bunch of those guys are going over to Vegas, so good luck to them over in Vegas, which is this weekend. So cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the coverage from the LVO this weekend. It's always pretty good, both from Frontline as well as from Warhammer TV itself. And lots of the people that we kind of watch on YouTube also live stream and stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's almost like an e-sport.
I can't wait to go. I've been wanting to go to the LVO for a long time, but young children and traveling.
Maybe next year, Phil. We'll take all our families, salute with the women.
I've been talking about this with Barney too. Like we all have kids about the same age. We all have wives that tolerate us and they get along. So there you go. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, it's set up. 2019 #LVO trip. All right, we're going to talk about what's out this week and possibly coming out for Games Workshop. And so Nurgle stuff is all out, I believe, now.
So exciting.
Yep, so that's like all the stuff that they leaked, the Great and Clean ones and the Heralds and the trees and all that stuff. Are those Pusgoyle Blight Lords?
This week was the Pusgoyle Blight Lords and the Sloppity Bile Piper. Is that those guys are out? Yeah, I'm picking mine up tomorrow. He's so good.
People are complaining that Slaanesh is now the only demon faction that doesn't have special heralds.
Well, I mean, not yet. I mean, eventually they might. I think they.
I always thought Slaanesh died or something, or got killed by Nagash or something.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just like one of those things where like Slaanesh models don't seem to sell as like I have like zero interest in picking up Slaanesh stuff.
Well, they never sold when they had like boobs on them, I guess.
And they had like a big release. Like I remember like a big release like 5 years ago when they released all like the big like chariots and all that stuff. So I've got a feeling that they released that and it just might not have done all that great, and they just kind of decided to.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe Fulgrim and Emperor's Children come out, and then Slaanesh Demons comes out with that. Who knows?
Yeah, actually, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Just today, a short but sweet trailer for Dark Elves.
Yeah, that was or Daughters of Cain. Like it sounds like Marathi or something. Like yeah, it's definitely one of those like sub factiony kind of things. So it's not like the the dread pirate Dark Elves. It's like the proper like badass chicks and knives and stuff. So that's gonna be pretty.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if they come out with any new models for that. But
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, we'll see. And I guess the Death Book is probably coming out in a few weeks, which I'm very much looking forward to. I've resisted buying more Death until I see that book. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Do you actually own? Do you have Nagash? I don't think that's like one of them.
I don't have Nagash. No.
I'm surprised.
You know why? Because I'm scared of that model. I hate spirit hosts. Those things were like the most painful things to put together of all time, and Nagash is like a giant mother spirit host, right?
Well, if you're afraid of it, I will put it together for you.
Oh, yeah.
The same way, because it's a model that I've always wanted to, like I want to put that together, but I don't play Death, so.
Okay, deal.
It's like a vanity model. I like that. I like Archaon, but I wouldn't play with those, but yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, I'll buy Nagash. You can put him together
amazing.
For me.
We can have like a Glotkin versus Nagash game or something.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know of any other AOS stuff? I don't think they've announced much else currently.
That was it.
So really, what's been getting me, very excited is Custodies. So what's interesting about Custodies is before Talons of the Emperor box in 7th, Custodies just wasn't a thing because they weren't in 40k, right? Like the Fluffwise. But then because they were part of the Indominus Crusade, so at some point I thought that Custodies might come out.
And they did.
And so they have, and it is, oh man, those biker models are just sick.
I just actually finally took a look at the, I really like I'm going to call them Terminators, but the big sort of jacked up Custodies, like the 3 comes in a box of 3 there. Those guys look sweet.
Yeah. Oh, they all look sweet, man. And then of course I'm eagerly waiting for Forge World to release their 40k rules for their Forge World stuff because I got some of those dreadnoughts that I want to use.
They're like the nicest dreads that are out there.
So
those night ones, like I don't know what they're called, but they're really nice.
The Galatis and the Achilles. Yeah, I got one.
I hope they're amazing. Like it's one of those things you want those like those are nice models and you want them to be like good,
Well, the book is pretty impressive. They need all the help they can get because you're going to have like 20 models in your army, if you want to play pure Custodies. You need to be that much more powerful, and it seems like they are going to be pretty hard to kill. You
were just, I remember like on Sunday, you were kind of spouting off a couple of MathHammer things about Custodies, and they just seemed like a good time to take a little break from 40k. These guys seem like they're badass, so I wasn't looking forward to getting my teeth kicked in by some shiny gold dudes. So.
Oh man! And then that's the bonus. All you have to do is spray them, wash with Reichlin Fleshy, and you're done.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good. Like Grey Knights when they came out when they were good. It was like a simple, easy to get into army, low model count. So. So, I mean, yeah, if they play their cards right, I think they can get a lot of those armies out there. So
yeah, so it's going to be good. So a pre-order right now and out this weekend will be the Codex, all the special editions, all the dice and cards, and all that stuff. Of course, you can already get Custodian Guards from the Talons box, but now you can get them in a separate box. And then the HQ, the Trejan Valoris, he's also out this week. And then next week will be the Terminators, the Alaris Terminators, and the bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
any other? Because they didn't get a tank, did they? I'm thinking about the 30. They have a 30K tank, so they're not getting a special.
No, they have like 4 different tanks in 30K, so hopefully we'll get rules for that.
Cool. But
we'll see. Oh man! And then just starting to leak today was also the beginnings of the Thousand Suns information. So Thousand Suns is the next book coming out probably a few weeks from now, so a couple of weeks after Custodies probably.
Yeah, and I like how they it seems like 40K gets Skyfires now too, so they can if they're as good as they are in AOS.
Oh dear.
You'll feel the pain of
oh my god,
Skyfires in 40K maybe.
So they're getting Skyfires. They already got all their Zangors and stuff like that. The rumor is Magnus is going up in points, but he'll have a deep strike stratagem. All sorts of kind of things. Some FAQs came out, of course, clarifying that you cannot deep strike Magnus or Mortarion, that the demon faction keyword is in fact different from demon keyword. So that was a FAQ that Frontline had already been telling everybody was going to come. So
jeez.
Yeah,
because those guys are fun, and they're not. Yeah, having them deep strike will make them even more fun.
Yeah, they were like, don't come to the LVO with the list designed to do this because it will not be. Trust me on that one. I can't tell you why. Just trust me on that one. So yeah, and I think that's it. No sign yet of the 2 Shadespire warbands, although we know they're going to be Skaven and Dwarves. Probably end of February after Thousand Suns, hopefully, along with Death. Yeah, Death and
the good thing with the Shadespire is that not only are you getting the new. It's not like necessarily about the new warbands, which I mean, Skaven are one of my favorite fantasy armies, so like I'm super stoked about them. But it's like the new cards, right? Like the new decks that are available. So it's gonna shift things around, and I think the deeper the card pool, the more intricate and the greater the strategy is in this game. So very excited about that.
Well, that's a perfect segue into our main segment, which is on Shadespire. So this is actually the first time we talk about Shadespire formally on the podcast. Obviously, we mentioned it a number of times, but we thought we would, since we've already featured 5 or 6 games on our YouTube channel,
we played a few more.
Yeah, we might as well talk about it.
Dark matches, quote unquote, off the channel. But yeah, we played quite a bit.
And a couple of disclaimers. First of all, we might talk about what we think is good or not good, but nobody really knows. There's no competitive meta really as of yet. If you go to a tournament, it's probably almost 40% luck whether you get to the end or not. And a lot of people are still trying to discover games, and of course the card set is constantly evolving. So
yeah, there's no net listing in this. This isn't quite Magic the Gathering where you can.
So it's not a mature game yet, but it is a fast growing game, and so most of the stuff we're talking about just from our own play experience. So
and you need to play it. I think that's the big difference. Because I know GW posted some of the decks, winning decks from like their Warhammer days and stuff like that. I don't think like net listing a deck is going to make you great at Shadespire. I think it's playing, tweaking, trying some stuff out, because you'd be surprised like how things work. Like you just really have to just wrap your mind around how your army works.
So for those of you who don't know, Shadespire is it's a Games Workshop game. It's a combination of deck building card game with miniatures on a board. So it's a miniature game, it's a board game, and it's a card game. All roll into this fantastic package. And basically, if you're it's a great gateway game into the GW universe. So it's based roughly on Age of Sigmar, like the fantasy setting. And it's basically you use a small warband of anywhere from 3 to 7 models so far. And then you play on a board game with a deck. So it is quite accessible. You could buy everything released up till now for probably under $200, which you definitely could not do in 40K or AOS. Everybody is at approximately the same level of skill right now.
Yeah.
There's no people out there who are super hardcore expert players, and everybody's kind of learning. So it's a great time to get into it, and it also gets your feet wet in terms of putting things together because they're all snap fit, easy to build.
Beautiful models.
Yeah, beautiful models, and they're color coded, so you don't even have to paint them. But it's a great intro into hobbying and painting. And the game plays in about 45 minutes, and
that's super important. I think what I noticed about how, because I played like most of the big games and Blood Bowl and AOS and 40K, but I find Shadespire just fits into this perfect like I call it a good after the kids go to bed thing. So like I can sneak off on a weeknight, 8:30 we can get like 3-4 games in, before midnight, which is really like it's super fun. Like,
it is also a game, I think it's mostly designed at its best between 2 people, but it can be played with up to 4 people.
It's fun. It's a bit of a cluster F, but
just a random free for all at that point. But
it's really like for people who play multiplayer Magic. Like I find it's a great analogy. Like it's not necessarily like part of you doing well in a multiplayer game isn't like how great of a player you are. It's just how it's just really fun. Like the games that we've played, 4-player games that we've played, like they were just had a blast. Like it was just really.
So a common question people ask me is, well, they don't like Magic, so will they like this because it's kind of card based? And I say it's not like Magic. So
not at all.
There's a core set of cards, and then each warband that comes out brings cards for that warband as well as for the core set. And
it's a living card game setup.
That's right. So if you want all the cards, you will have to buy every expansion, but you're only allowed 1 per card in your deck, and everybody has access to the same cards. So it's more like a living card game like Netrunner, stuff like that, less like a collectible card game.
And the cards are just like, they're not like the core mechanic is still like like Warhammer and AOS. It's still a dice based game, so you're rolling dice. The cards are like a way to augment the gameplay. So you do have characters with set stats and with set number of attacks and movement, and then your cards kind of act as a buff and their upgrades, and that's where the strategy, that's where the depth of the game comes from, is that you're in charge of the win conditions of your warband. So you decide how you want to win, how you want to play the game. And that aspect of it is really, really, really interesting. So
I would say that's a very good point. So it's really your deck is how you want to play the game, but the game is still a game of dice. So the dice have a big influence on it.
They can,
it can really. You can do well if you roll well, or you can do really all your plans can fall to shit because your dice are crappy.
Critical saves.
It can really do that. So it really is still a miniature board game with dice, but the cards add to it like a lot. Like the cards are a big part of it, obviously, but it's not like it's not quite like just a pure card game. So that's a good point to make.
Well, what I do find is interesting about you mentioned Magic. People who have played deck-based game like Magic the Gathering, like it really just teaches you like like deck building etiquette, or you kind of like you build a deck to draw cards you're playing, it's a probability game, so you're trying to optimize your deck to be able to draw reliably what you need on which turn. So I think if you've played those kinds of card games before, it just helps your how you'll build your deck. You'll feel right at home, and I think that's what the second I started playing with this game, I just got it because I played a lot of Magic in my day and stuff. So it was like, oh, cool. Like I get to, merge Magic and Warhammer basically. So.
Yeah. Okay. So Phil, somebody, always asks me, I want to start Shadespire. What do I need to buy? What would you say?
I actually started, like sort of a little bit backwards. Like I got my feet wet. So I actually picked up, I didn't pick up the box game because you need someone with the box game, so you had it, and I picked up just my the Orcs, the Iron Boys, just to see if I liked it. So, because when you buy your boys, you have like all you need to basically play the game if you have a friend that has a copy of the box game. So that was a way of getting introduced to it. But
2 people could definitely share a starter box and play out of the starter box with the 2 starting armies. I think that's how the starter box was designed, so you could play straight out, and it even comes with when you open it, there's 2 built decks for you to play with, and then there's an extra set of cards when you're feeling more up to it. So they actually come with 2 decks built, and then it takes you literally 5 minutes to build the models, like literally just snap them together, no glue, no nothing, and then you can start playing. So it's very, very accessible. 2 people could share a starter box, no problem. But I think if you want to start playing, like eventually you're not going to be able to share all the cards because there's only 1 of each.
And
right?
you want to sort of like, what I've noticed is like, it starts well, and then with just the orcs, and then really quickly I was like, wow, I really like this, and then you start to look at like, oh, but I like these cards, and then eventually you just end up playing, like I play all the warbands. I think there's I saw a question up on your like Facebook page where people were asking about like, oh, what's the best faction? I think ultimately you'll kind of want to play them all, and that I really enjoy swapping back and forth between the different factions, right? Because they play like significantly different. So it depends on your mood, and so I find, like, obviously if you do start the game, pick up the box set to start. It gives you the 2 starting warbands with a bunch of like the core cards, and then you'll likely want to pick up the orcs and the sepulchral guard afterward to kind of broaden your depth of cards and stuff, because they're just great.
Yeah, well, that's a great lead-in then. Why don't we talk about the warbands? So, when you play Shadespire, you pick a warband or a faction, and you get your models with that warband, and each warband has a set of cards that only it can use, but it can also have access to all the core cards, which anybody can use. And just to, if people don't realize, you have 2 decks that you play with. One deck is a deck of 12 objectives. These are the things that you're trying to achieve in the 3 turns of the game that will score you the glory points, the points that you use to win the game. And then the other deck, which is usually about 20 plus cards, is your upgrades and your ploys, which are kind of like spells and abilities, instants and things like that you use to try and achieve those objectives. So you have these 2 decks, and then you have your dice and you have your models. So when you buy a warband, you get the models in it, some very nice color instructions, gotta say, how to paint them, colors and stuff to use, and then you get all your warband specific cards, and then the core cards that come with that expansion, and that's all for about $25. It's like really cheap for a GW product. Like, that, even a freaking Primaris Librarian is like $45, right? So you're getting models, you're getting cards, you're getting a lot for $25. So you could buy all 4 warbands for $100. Like, it's really very reasonable. So for, if you're starting off, like, you should pick a warband that you like, just like the look of, like, because you probably be going to be like us and buy all of them, but pick the one that you like the look of, or listen to this podcast. You can get a feel of what the warband's like. So that's what we're going to do now. Let's talk a little bit about the warband. So Phil, why don't you pick one that you want to start with? Yeah,
well, it's worth noting that each unlike sort of a game of 40K or AOS. Your warband they're actually set, they're basically like, 4, 5, 3 named characters. So the Steelheart dudes, like the Stormcast guys, it's 3 characters. So they're not like generic, they're named characters, I suppose.
And as far as we know, the warbands are not going to be expanding. So you don't have to feel like you always have to keep buying models to add to it.
No, yeah, you basically have a set team, and the team kind of works, and the game is balanced in between the factions. So some factions obviously have more bodies, some have, greater attacks. So there's like an internal balance to the game, which I find is actually it's quite tight. Like in a lot of the games that we've played, it feels like, you could go either way. Like I think a good player, I think, can do well with any of the warbands, but you have to build your deck accordingly, so to play off that strength. But let's start.
Who do you want to talk about?
I'll talk about my. Should I do my favorite? I think my favorite is actually Khorne. Well, let's talk about Khorne.
Really? That's your favorite?
Surprise! I played them. I just started playing them like a couple of weeks ago, and I really like them.
You were so orc, man. You were all in orcs.
I still love my orcs, but I think there's something about Khorne that I like. So so the core warband, Garrick's, is it Garrick's Reavers? Yeah. So they're a team of 5 sort of
muscly dudes.
Yeah, blood Reavers, I suppose, is the AOS equivalent.
Yep.
They're muscly dudes. They're they're quick. They're they're basically like a glass cannon. That would be the best way to
describe. They're the quickest warband so far, right? They move like 5
they move
when they're inspired.
I think 4 when they're regular, 5 when they're inspired. So they do move quite quickly. They have a couple of really strong fighters, and then a couple of like disposables. So it's a fun warband because they move so incredibly quickly. And I find they're just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
like high risk, high reward kind of thing. So if your dice agree with you, you'll have a great time. If the dice betray you, it's going to be an uphill battle. So.
Yeah, the Reavers play. There's a couple of sides to them. So you got 5 guys who move 4 inches, 5 when they're inspired. So you can play an objective focused deck where you have a guy just sitting at the back holding objective, and you could go and grab things and move into zones and things because you move so quickly and you have so many guys, right? So you can play like that. You can also play like Khorne wants you to play. The Blood God wants blood.
Just kill.
And there are a lot of cards, Khorne-specific cards, that reward you playing like that. So attacking and then attacking again, or killing everybody, or leaving your zone, like aggressive sort of forward play.
Yeah.
And so,
and I don't know if you want to get into like how like the game actually plays, because I think a couple of these things that we might talk about might play into how the game plays. But I mean, this warband, what's interesting about them is that you could win even if your own guys die. Because the win conditions are kind of like, they're basically, you can tailor them to your deck. So I think there's a deck that I could build with this Khorne warband where you just prioritize, like, I want you to kill all my dudes except one guy. and then you kind of bait your opponent to killing everyone. And then your opponent thinks they're doing great because like all your guys are dead. But your one last remaining character with all the upgrades, there's a special, one of the special objective cards that gives you 5 victory points just for having this, Garrett be the lone survivor. So you can like trick your opponent to killing your goods, and that's what Khorne wants. They want
the Blood God doesn't care what blood it is; he just wants blood.
So I find because of that, like for a lot of reasons, I think they're quite cool. Like I my little note cheat sheet that I've got up here. Like I just mentioned something about how they actually have my favorite faction specific objectives. I find their objectives are just really, really fun compared to the orcs, where I find some of them are a bit harder to achieve. I find the Khorne ones are just, they're fun to get. Like it's about killing and dying. So like whether you're getting slaughtered or you're slaughtering, like you kind of end up ahead either way. So that's how Khorne plays in a nutshell.
Yeah, like you have to remember these guys are just shirtless dudes, so they don't survive very long, and you actually probably want 2 or 3 of them to die so that your other fighters they get stronger, they get inspired when a couple of people die. But they definitely can play either way, so it makes them very interesting. So just go through a couple cards that you like in the Khorne specific cards. You like any of those cards, Phil?
So yeah, I mean, I had a whole list of my favorites for Khorne. So I guess like I think it's worth mentioning how do you, because again we mentioned that the different factions play differently, and you can also play each faction differently. So specifically, like the way that I play my Khorne is I basically play off of their speed to grab objectives, and then simply like rack up kills with my big dudes, and I think Garrick in specifically, because I think in their team there's two of your dudes are doing most of the killing. So the Blooded Sake and Garrick, they're the ones that are the most reliable at killing enemy characters. So and so all of the objectives that I like and all the ploys that I like in that army play to those guys. So like ploy wise, I like Fueled by Slaughter. That's the one that lets you make an attack action after a fighter's taken out. So whether it's friend or foe, so your enemy can kill one of your dudes, and then you can play this card as a reaction, and it lets you make an attack action, which is really strong. Or even better, to add insult to injury, you kill one of their dudes, and then you play this card, so you get to like attack twice. And again, in a game that basically is just 3 rounds, any out of sequence action you can take is huge. Like it's a big move. If you can attack twice in a turn, if you can do 2 actions in a turn,
because you have 12 moves basically for the game.
Yeah.
So if you can combine 2 moves into one, then or do it out of turn or both, then you're ahead. You get an extra move basically, right? So it's very much about turn economy. So I do like the cards that let you do an extra thing after you do something else. Though those generally are pretty good cards, depending on kind of the trigger, what the trigger condition is.
Right. Sometimes some cards have a roll a dice trigger, so you'll be able to do something if you roll what is essentially a 4+. So you have a 50-50 chance of a card going off. So I tend to not favor those cards because the effect might be powerful, but like trusting it to a dice roll, like coming from Blood Bowl, like if anyone out there has played Blood Bowl, you're kind of like, it's a dice game, but you're trying to roll the least amount of dice as possible because every time you roll dice, you can fail. So
what's interesting is it's not that interesting, I guess, but one of my favorite cards that I hate to see played against me is an upgrade that goes on Garrick called Grizzly Trophy. So Garrick is the leader. He's also the guy who's hardest to kill and hits the hardest in the warband. Inevitably, he ends up being the last guy, unless whoever playing him is playing him recklessly. But so this upgrade, basically, you get an extra glory point if you kill somebody, which is so huge because it could be one glory point is the difference between,
And it was, I think, in our last couple of games that we played, that was what got me ahead by 1 point. Was just this Garrick by himself was just because essentially you can score points in this game by claiming the win condition on a victory card, or also every time you slay an enemy combatant, you get 1 victory point. So with that specific upgrade in play, he gets 2 every time you essentially kill someone. So
you were playing my skeletons, and it's so easy to kill petitioners, and that's giving you 2 glory every time, and it's like that's painful. I hate that card.
It's funny you mentioned that because that upgrade is definitely on my list of favorite upgrades for them. And another one that I like on Garrick specifically is the Blood Slick. You can use this upgrade to basically give him access to an extra defense dice. So instead of rolling just 1 defense dice, he rolls 2. And what you find in this game is that the more dice you roll, the more chances you get to get one of those critical successes. And those critical successes are like, you're really hunting for them. Like they're like, I don't think we're gonna. It feels like we're not gonna go into like the in depth the play mechanics, the basic play mechanics of this game in this podcast. But a critical success always succeeds. It's like a 1 in 6 chance. So if you're rolling 2 dice for defense, you get twice those chances.
Just kind of want to give people a sense of what the warbands are about, so maybe help them choose a warband, and then we're definitely going to do another Shadespire podcast where we maybe go in depth into one warband or talk more about general tactics and things like that. But
for sure.
So if you like getting blood for the blood god, then this is the warband for you, obviously. If you like having fast dudes and that can hold objectives as well, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility in the warband, so it's a pretty good warband to start with. It'll give you a great intro to the game.
And they have a ranged character too, which is worth saying. Like most of these characters in this game have a range of 1 hex, so you can only fight someone that's adjacent to you, but one of their fighters has the ability to hit someone that's two squares away. So that's a nice thing to play too. So they're fun, and like I said, their objectives is what makes them really, really fun. Like I find they're fun objectives to get. So
yep. Okay, let's go on to Steelheart's Champions. So Steelheart's Champions are the Stormcast guys, so gold armor,
guys and girls.
Is this the first model that doesn't have a hat on? Doesn't have a helmet? Steelheart? Is it the first one?
Maybe. I don't know. It feels like, no, the Vanguard Paladins, I think, Paladors, I think they had no.
Okay. And then, of course, female, Angarad, who is hardcore, and the dude with the big hammer, I can't remember his name. Oberyn, that's right. So not the Necron Oberyn, the other Oberyn.
Yeah.
So this warband is very different than Khorne's Reavers. You have 3 models. Yeah, so only 3 models. They can be much harder to kill. So their thing is kind of like, a lot of the ways that people are playing them these days, and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But they just beef them up, make them really hard to kill, and sit in their own objectives and sit in their own zone. So that's one way of playing them. Certainly, with only 3 models, no matter how hard you are to kill, eventually you will die. And so maybe rushing them all into your opponent's zone is not the best way to play them, but they're also pretty, like, they hit pretty well as well.
Well, what's I find is interesting, their most interesting mechanic, and something that you might not think of, by looking at them, is the fact that they only have 3 models. Basically gives you access to what most of these other warbands don't have, is that free activation, because every turn consists of 4 activations. So usually, if you have 4 characters like the orcs, you can move 4 guys, you can attack 4 times. So you have the ability to activate each character at least once. The Blood Reaver guys, like, there's 5, so you have someone that's always going to not do anything.
Yep.
Whereas the Steelheart champions, you have three characters. Then that leaves you open to do some more interesting things like deck manipulation. Like, you can draw more objectives, you can try drawing more action cards. And I really, really like that aspect of playing with the champions there.
Yeah, it does give you that flexibility. And if you look through their dedicated objective cards, you get a flavor. Just but it's obviously that GW doesn't just want you to play in your own zone. I mean, so seize ground, score in the end phase if you hold an objective in your enemy territory, and then this one, like, holding objectives for 2 turns. Hold a 3 glory at the end if you hold all the objectives in your enemy's territory.
That's really hard to get.
There's ones here that because they're pretty hard to hit with all their shields and stuff. So score this if you didn't suffer any damage.
I love the one that lets you. It's all your fighters are alive at the end,
yes.
And it's actually not that hard to get against some fans. Like they have a lot of wounds, and they have a lot of. They're also one of the armies that benefits from going on guard, which is a mechanic that we don't use a lot with some of these other factions. But putting these folks on guard, you're basically blocking on a 3+.
It's like a 3-up save basically.
Yeah.
So Eternals score this in the 3rd end phase. So at the end of the game, if none of your fighters are out of action, 3 glory. So like just say if you put them all at the back on your side, and you buff them all up defensively, my skeletons, I can't actually get to you in time to kill you. I physically can't. With 2 move, I can't get there in time to kill you.
Your deck dictates how your army will play, right? Like, and I find, like, with them, what's great is that you can play defensively, but they hit, like, really hard. So you can goad the Garrick's Reavers to come in and try to get you, and they can swarm you and they can try to attack you, but most of their characters for Steelheart champions can one-shot most of any of the other warbands characters with the right upgrades. So, And that's an important gameplay mechanic. I think that's worth looking at. It's trying to find ways to up your character's damage potential so that they can take out characters in one shot. Like, it's a big important.
Having to attack something 3 times just to kill it is not good. Like, trust me, because you're totally losing your turn efficiency, right? By having to do it so many times. So certainly upgrades that make you more powerful, do more damage, or roll more dice is definitely good.
Once you get to 4 damage, that's the sweet spot. I find.
I love this card that they have this ploy, Sigmarite Wall. Choose 2 adjacent friendly fighters and put them on guard. So that just makes them so hard to kill, and it's like instant, and then they can still do something the next time. So
and one of their greatest things is that if your opponent flubs on them and you manage to save with like a shield, that's what inspires them. That's what makes them better. So if they manage to block something, they end up being better and then rolling more dice for defense. So they can get once they have, like, their inspired profile with their two dice to block, like, they're really tough to budge. So they have their own push. So choose enemy fighter, push them 1 hex, Peal of Thunder. So they have an extra push that other warbands don't have. Another card that puts them on guard. Tireless Assault lets you fight if you miss, which is great. I think the Undead have one as well of those cards. Like when you flub your attacks, having an ability to reroll is huge. My favorite upgrade for these folks is I think it's called Heroic Stride. You put it on Steelheart. It's, I think, whenever an enemy model ends their movement or something, ends an action within like 2 hexes of you, you can just move. Because one of the downsides, I think, of the the biggest downside of the champions is that their movement is really slow. Like next to the skeletons, they're like the slowest. I think their base movement 3, I think, across the board. So
yeah, but that one extra makes a huge difference.
It's huge. Yeah. But so having the ability, like I like using things that push them, that you get to basically do out of sync moves with them. Like anything that you can do to just move a character one hex is pretty big. So
yeah. No, I like this upgrade block that goes on Angarad. It's an action, but everybody goes on guard, which is awesome.
Again, you were talking about like economy of action, like anything that lets you do more than one thing. So guard on its own, like say for like the Sepulchral Guard where you have like 7 characters to move, wasting an activation to put someone on guard is not necessarily the best thing. Whereas for the Steelheart Champions, they're you don't have a lot of models, but so you want to try to find ways of making them as resilient and as awesome as possible. So putting them on guard is great.
Yeah. Lots of ways of pushing people away. This is a Lightning Blade, which is a 2 hex attack upgrade. It's like Shield Bash. You push them away. A lot of their cards push people. Well, I guess you don't have to push them away, but you could push them away with these attacks. And there's a flavor from their deck.
And there's a great objective. I think it's called Consecrated Area. So you basically score 1 glory if no one's adjacent to one of your characters. So that's one of those great, like if you get that in your opening hand, you're more likely going to score it on your first turn because no one's going to be near you. Or like Bloodless, I think, is another one that if you don't suffer any wounds, you get a glory. So there's a lot of nice ways to farm early glory with them to force your opponent to come to you, and then when they do, you just retaliate and you smack them because they're pretty punishing in combat too. So
yeah. Okay, well, so that's Steelheart's champions, kind of stalwart elite force, pretty hard to kill, hit pretty hard, move kind of slowly, can play them sitting at the back. You could push them forward. I suspect they're probably somewhere in the happy medium would be the best, kind of defending the middle of the boards. Interesting warband there.
They're fun.
On. Yeah.
I guess we'll save the guard for you because you're the skeleton master. So maybe I'll talk about the orcs.
Yeah, let's do orcs. Let's do orcs next.
The orcs, the Iron Jaws. They're my first warband.
Your first love, abandoned.
My first
already.
love. I still love them. Like I'm 100% not abandoning them. I think they're probably the most fun. They're the most, I think, forgiving warband to start playing with. I think with 4 models, they're durable. They hit hard. Their ploys are fun. Their attacks are fun. They're a great starter army. Like I think they just play well in all phases. The way I play mine is I just straight up no objective play. I run and I smash and I fight. It's just the orc way.
Yeah. And the cool thing about them is if you play that way, it becomes a snowball effect. So you kill one person, then you can do something else with a card, then you can do something else, and it just keeps snowballing. And as the defender against that, it becomes very difficult to stop that snowball. Yeah, because they hit hard and they're pretty hard to kill. 3 or 4 health with shields instead of dodge. So they're kind of like a nice medium of being decently tough, move decently fast, and hit decently hard. And
Gurzag, their leader, is like an absolute monster in combat. I think he's probably like pound for pound the best.
Oh, I think he is.
He has like the most wounds. He has the most wounds. He has like getting him inspired is great. And I think Bone Cutter is the other standout in their team. Like he's another like one shot kills everyone guy. And then they have 2 fun utility. Their skirmishers are fun utility, like Haka and Basha. They're fun too. Like it's a great team. And I find like they're good. They're easy enough to bounce back. You're not like the Steelheart Champions. If you lose 1 model and you're down to 2, you're fighting uphill. Garrick's Reavers, if you lose Garrick or Blooded Sake, you're done.
You're done.
Sepulchral Guard, if your Warden goes, you're gone. Whereas I find like with the with the orcs, you can lose 1 and then your others can still kind of pick up the slack once they get inspired, and they get inspired for being injured. So which is just like great. It's hilarious.
It's good because they can take the injury, right? They have like 3 health or 4 health, and you can.
Yeah, I think most of them have 4. Yeah, 4 you go down, you tick down to 3, and then you're super sane at 3 wounds. So
Yeah. No, I really like how they play. I would go so far as to say I think that they're the strongest warband. Just kind of like overall, sure, like a good player against a bad player with any warband will beat them regardless, but everything else being equal, I think the orcs are the strongest warband.
I find what I've found with playing the other teams is they have a few objectives that are just harder to get. Like their class specific objectives, like to gain glory, like are pretty. Some of them are pretty like they're really tough. Some of them I just wouldn't bother using. I find their deck I tend to use more generic objectives than the class specific ones because they're like I think their favorite of objectives that I really like is biggest and the baddest. So it's when your boss kills someone. That's usually an easy one to get.
Yeah,
there's a few like charged with 3 characters. I think that's good. And then you get into like these more specific ones where like each of your fighters need to attack a different character. And I think that, so their objectives I find are a bit harder to claim than the corn ones, which might be surprising.
Yeah, I mean they have 3 objectives that you score immediately, which are nice because that
huge,
gives you glory possibly in the first turn. But
and lets you cycle a new card, right?
One of them is too dumb to die. You have to one fighter has to take 3 or more damage and not die in order to score 1 glory.
See, like those are great in theory, but again they're hard to get because most people will try to like it would be very rare for me to try to get someone down to 3 wounds. I would just try to save my actions to take them out, immediately, or peck them with one damage first to soften them, and then just land the killing blow. Because the last thing you want to do is bring someone down to 1 wound. There's quite a few ways to heal wounds in this game with like healing potions and some ploys where if you don't kill them outright, you can just like it hurts to see like a character go back to full health after you've wasted 1/12 of your turns in the game to try to like bring them down. So
no, I like how they also play well to the generic core cards like the denials and those big scoring objectives in the 3rd phase, because if they're charging into your zone, the last thing you're thinking about is moving somebody into their zone. So it plays well with that.
Which after playing a few games, I think you clued into it pretty quickly, like that no matter what, towards the end of the game, you should always just make sure you have one character in your opponent's zone just to like get the quote unquote line breaker, like to use like 40k parlance.
yeah, it's kind of like line breaker. You should always try and get one person into the opponent's zone, or else you basically lose if they have that card.
It's like it's 3 glory. It's a pretty big one.
So I'm looking at their ploys, and there's really 2 ploys that I really like that I've had played against me, obviously by you many times, and they're a pair because one is cunning but brutal, and the other is brutal but cunning.
Oh, those are great.
So the cunning but brutal one is a reaction that basically allows you to attack after you've made a move. Which is awesome because that's 2 activations in one, and because it's not a charge, you can attack and attack and attack. You can keep attacking. And then brutal but cunning, which is also a reaction, and after you've made an attack, then you can move that attacker 3 hexes.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
And you don't have to roll the dice with those ones, right?
No, these are just reactions you play and they happen, right? So as we already said, we don't like things that are kind of leave it to chance.
The orcs do have one that I like that rolls a dice. I think it just basically lets you attack again if you roll hammers or crits. So on a 50-50, you can just. I think that's good. My ploy that I liked is called leading by example. So if your boss kills someone, which Gerzag typically kills people, you get to make a charge action after your. So basically, Gerzag charges, he kills someone. And then immediately one of your other dudes gets to make a charge. And usually you would make sure that it's like bone cutter, so he can charge and also kill someone. And then in one turn you can potentially have a 2-character swing. Like it's pretty.
Yep.
That's hard to get back from. So
yeah. And so they have a card here which you haven't played, which I think is very good, which is pillage. Remove an objective from the battlefield that you hold. And I think that's very underrated, especially for playing skeleton. But against anybody, a lot of people play the odd objective card, or they have cards that revolve around being on the objective, and just being able to remove one is awesome.
It would make 100% sense for me to have that in my deck, because my deck plays like there's nothing in my deck that says grab an objective. I think there's one, maybe it's like my boss needs to be on one of your objectives in your zone, but like there's no reason for me to keep an objective in my opponent's zone, so I would just raise it and go with that. But but then I would have to waste one move to get to the objective in order to burn it. So I find like it's good, but I think there's other, like, I like my killy poise a little bit better.
Yeah. All right. Well, upgrade wise, so the upgrades generally focus around making them hurt more or making them harder to hurt.
Yeah.
So Wah, that gives you an extra damage.
The +1 damage ones, I think, just in general are great, and because they have and they have like the generic one, you can have one character that has an extra 2 damage. So your little 1 damage punks can then turn into 3 damage monsters.
Because they're not scary at 1 damage, but then they take a hit, and then now they're like 2 damage, and then you put one of these, now 3 or 4 damage, now they're machines, right? Yep.
And I really like it's unkillable.
I knew you were going to say that.
So it's unkillable. That's one of those dice rolling ones that I think is really useful. I like, especially, I think we played a game where Jason pulled this off, where he had unkillable and soul trap. So basically both cards more or less do the same thing, that when an action should take your character out, you roll a dice on a shield or more. You don't remove your dude. He stays there and doesn't take any damage. So there's a way of basically having 2 of these stacked on your Gurzag, so that you would need to have to try to kill him 3 times in order to kill him.
Well, you can't use them both at the same time. So if one
you
fails,
would do I guess you would do the first one. And
there's
then,
no point having 2.
Right. I guess not, because if you mess up, then he's dead.
It might be worthwhile for a skeleton to have 2 of those, because then I could come back and it's still on him. But
yeah, I just really like that one quite a bit.
Yeah. I like that one too. This one that makes the little dudes reduce their damage suffered by 1, which is great.
Yeah, like thick skull or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Giving bone cut a cleave, so good. Where's the one that lets you hit everybody? Is that
I think that might be a
swing. Brutal swing. Oh, that's so good. Giving bone cutter a 3 dice hit that hits everybody around him. Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that one too.
No, so they're just I just think that they're fun. Like they're just fun. Like, and again, it's like, switch your quote unquote switch your brain off and then just go and fight and smash. Like, take damage, it doesn't matter, it's the orc way. Whereas I'm finding the other ones, like, lose characters, and then it's hard to find. The orcs they're orcs. They're out to fight. They're out to pillage. But I'm sure that there's a way to build, like, a thinking man orcs warband. So you can play an objective game with orcs, and you can try to do something different. And again, that's again, reiterating the point that that's the greatest part about this game, is that, like, you can.
I think you can totally play
the same, right?
You can totally play orcs that way if you put your objectives more forward, and if you have 3 objectives, put the last one in your opponent's zone, and then because you're hard to kill, and if somebody tries to attack you and they don't kill you, they're dead, right? So your counter is very strong. So I think you totally can play a mixed objective offensive deck, or maybe not a pure objective deck, but definitely pure offensive works for them, or a mixed, hold a few objectives as well as offense. So I think they're super flexible, very easy to figure out, and a good intro army, but also very strong.
And using Magic the Gathering analogies again, like, you can have your aggro orc deck, your control orc deck, like you kind of like, you have these sort of ways of playing them. You can have your archetypes, so you kind of like, beat down Garrick's Reaver, objective Garrick's Reaver, like you kind of, you play your game and your opponent tries to play their game, and you're just racing to see who can execute better on their core strategy. So
yeah. No, that's really cool. Okay, let's move on to the final warband, which is my personal favorite, which is Sepulchral Guard.
And I've yet to play with them.
Yeah.
But prepping for this, I did my personal homework, and I started going through like what I would build in my skeleton deck, and they seem fun. Like, I can't wait to play them.
The skeletons are very different from the other 3 decks, I would argue. They're the kind of the other 3 can play in certain ways, but I would argue that the skeleton deck is very different. So the skeletons,
I would say it's the trickiest one. It's like advanced. You will get your butt kicked with skeletons if you don't know what you're doing, but you can dominate in like really interesting ways.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the most thinking deck, because you got 7 guys, and although you have some built-in economy of action, like the Warden's ability to move 2 of them, you have too many things you want to do almost all the time. You have too much you want or need to do and not enough activations. I always, when I'm playing them, feel that pressure of, I have 2 or 3 things I need to do or want to do. What order should I do them, and what can I not do this turn? And in a 3-turn game, that causes a bit of stress.
and they have, I think they have an extra ability to compete for your hard-earned actions that I also think is a bit of a, let's call it like a red herring, like the ability to, because they're the only warband that can bring guys back to life. So. And that, I think, a rookie mistake or something you might want to do when you first pick up this warband is like, oh, cool, I can bring some dudes back. So your dudes die, you bring them back. Your dudes die, you bring them back. But it wastes an action. I call it skeleton farming. So if your opponent keeps raising their skeletons back, you can just keep killing them, and then you get glory. Like it's almost like playing like whack-a-mole. You just you're just getting extra points. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a big but though about rezzing, is that I find used strategically, like a few times that you've used it, I thought the really clever ways that you kind of goad your opponent to, getting to your deployment zone, and then you can res someone at the very end in order to just like attack. And so one of your champions that you kind of forgot was there, all of a sudden just pops back up in one of the starting hexes, and then you can just like lay waste to your already wounded army. So I think rezzing late is a good way to do it. So
yeah, so the ability to bring back any fighter is obviously strong
and inspired,
but is a big trap. They come back they move a little bit faster when they come back. They move 3 instead of 2. Woohoo.
But their damage is strong.
No, they don't get stronger.
It's just the movement?
Yeah,
I thought like the champion or the harvester had more. The
warden gets stronger.
Oh.
But I think rezzing for most of the time is actually a trap, because as you say, it uses up an activation. You just often giving more glory to your opponent on something that is easy to kill. And so I think
Prince of Dusk gets an extra attack and extra damage when he's inspired.
Yeah, the big guys get a little bit stronger.
Yeah, so I wouldn't bother raising petitioners most of the time. Like it feels like they're, because like the harvester gets an extra attack.
But you can, though. You can. So I think you have to use rezzing for a very specific purpose, either to combo it with a card that allows you to res, so then you res 2 people, or comboing it with something that allows them to immediately attack or to move, so cards again, or right near the end of the game to get into your opponent, like an unexpected, res to get into your opponent's zone. Or like you have to use the res very strategically. You can't just keep rezzing things that keep dying.
Or rezzing for support. Like that's like whenever I get towards the end of the game, I like to place, like if I'm playing against your guard, I like to put my characters on the starting hexes, because they can only come back on like one of the starting hexes, like the ones that have the little skull logo on them. So So if you leave one of those open, you're standing next to one of those, like there's a potential skeleton that can just pop up there and then give an assist to someone. And I think skeletons are by far the best warband at providing assists, because you have so many bodies that you can
dudes. Yeah.
So you can just like get those like one assist, 2 assist things pretty reliably.
Yeah. So really, at first everybody thought that the strongest way to play skeletons, because you have so many bodies, was to play a completely objective based game. So you run all the cards that say hold objective 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You run the cards that say hold objective 1 and 2, or blah blah blah. And there's various cards in there that are focused around playing a defensive objective holding game, which you can do, and probably the only warband who could really do that effectively, but it is quite hard. And if you're playing an aggressive orc deck, like you're going to struggle doing that, right?
And I don't think stacking, like I think any objective based deck, I don't think you should have hold objective 1, hold objective 2. I think you kind of pick like 4 out of the 5, 3 out of because that like statistically some of them are going to be very hard to get. So I would like pick a few that are the ones that you want to hold. But not like waste five cards on claiming objectives.
Yeah, and then it becomes a real struggle for economy of action in order to have so many fighters, and you need to do so many things with so many people, and have only 4 activations a turn. right? And so in that way, it's very tricky to play them. But I think people underestimate the killing power of skeletons.
The Warden and the Harvester are beasts, man.
So
they're
the
like
Warden is strong.
He's so good.
If the Warden's inspired or has lethal lunge on him, he's doing a 2-range attack.
Lightning speed, lethal lunge, like he is like wow, so good.
The Champion has some nice upgrades that make him pretty killy, and of course after they get res, they keep their upgrades. So, and the Harvester it has a built-in kind of area of effect attack.
If you're not careful, you kill. I think your Harvester on his own once just destroyed my orcs because I was dumb, or I think you actually even you have some movement shenanigans where you can push my guys towards me. So you basically brought my guys closer to you and then just scythed 3 orcs to like almost kill them all 2 damage a piece. And attack twice with the Harvester. There's a card that lets you attack twice. So
because the board is hexes, right? And so hexes give you a lot of options in terms of where you move and where you can stand. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're getting lined up for a big swing attack.
Yeah.
It's funny how that happens. And then, of course, there's a lot of pushes and things that you can use to help you achieve such things with skeletons. But so overall, it's if you look at the cards in their specific deck, they do try and emphasize kind of those 2 play styles. So there's a lot of cards which emphasize using lots of people. So 2 glory here, March of the Dead for moving at least 5 people.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's an easy one to get, and it's great on your first turn because you're positioning and you will move 5. I think as skeletons you don't want to be charging or anything. You just want to move your dudes and set them up, right? So
here's an objective that if you have enemy fighters are adjacent to at least 2 friendly fighters, that scores you. And then of course there's the old famous claim the city. Score this in an end phase if you hold every objective. Now, you might think that that's hard. First of all, it's not.
You did it though.
No, I haven't done it. No, that's the grail for all guard players. It doesn't say third end phase. Any end phase if you hold every objective. And we don't know what cards are coming out. You see, there's already a couple of cards, 1 card or 2 cards that let you destroy objectives. And then there are cards that shard collar that allow you to bring objectives to you or move objectives. And so it doesn't say you have to hold at least 3 objectives. It just says you hold every objective. Maybe there's only 3 left. So, and that's 5 glory. So that's a game winner if you score that. So I think with more cards coming out, we're going to see Claim the City become possible.
And there's on a side note about the future of the skeleton deck, they are the is it the Cataphrane relics? Those they're the best for that because when you die you don't lose your upgrades, so you can just have 1 character and stack all of those. So basically they're cards. There's a set of 4. There's only 2 that have been released so far. It's basically one's the shirt of Cataphrane, the belt, the boots, and the hat. So if you get all 4, you get something like 4 glory points or something, and it makes your characters better the more that you stack on your characters. So.
But see, so here's a card that lets you score if you return 2 or more people to the battlefield, like you rezzed. But then, so I played that when I first started because I'm going to rezzing all the time. But I think that that's actually a trap. And here, score in your third end phase if all your surviving fighters are inspired, which means you rezzed a whole bunch of people. So again,
or if you have 1 guy left who is inspired.
Yeah. No, it says it has to be at least 3.
Oh, at least 3. Okay.
So again, it's a trap, right? So, and then you have ones that say score a whole bunch of glory points if at the end of the game nobody's inspired.
I like that one a lot better. I think Peerless General can be great, and as a little side thing, because then your guys can all be dead and you still score it. Because is it at least 3? Is it one of those at least 3 characters or?
4 or more surviving fighters, and none are inspired. Yeah,
because that means you need to not have your skeletons die. What I was going to say is what I made a note of. I think what the guard work well in, they're straight up like a control deck. I like things that because you can play a lot with I find a shard call, the one where or shattered glass, the one you put the glass down to block movement. You can do that thing with the hands, the clawing hands, where it slows down your opponents for each one of your dudes that are dead. You can. There's a lot of screaming where you can push people with some hexes, push them towards your harvester so you can do a big attack.
No, I think
what else?
I think
the one that does that damage whenever things move. There's that I forget what it's called, but whenever someone moves, they take a damage. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think the skeletons play best as a mostly objective focused, but not ignoring their ability to kill things. And so I think it's also striking a balance of where you play the warden, because you don't want the warden to die, but he's your strongest fighter. So
you can't keep him in the back. I think that's
keep him in the back. Yeah,
that's I think in the first couple of games that's the instinct is like, oh, I'm going to keep him in this little castle and he won't get hurt.
All right, so just looking at some of the specific cards that I really like to play with my skeletons. Frightening Speed, upgrade on one of your heavy hitters plus 2 move. That makes them 5 move, well, if inspired, but that makes them actually a decent move and a threat. I think this is an auto take. Like you generally should run upgrades that make your guys stronger, or make them make strong guys stronger or weak guys decently strong. So Grim Cleave gives the Harvester cleave, and he already has an area of effect attack. So basically, orcs, Stormcast, other people using shields, like that makes him an instant threat to those guys.
And it basically like nullifies guard if someone were to use guard on you.
Yeah, so good. So Restless Dead, key card. This is what lets you res somebody out of action. Yeah, and so that makes res so good, especially if you then res somebody as well, or if you combo it with something, because they may not be expecting. Well, I guess if you play skeletons, you should expect that to happen. But as you say, try and block up the starting spots. But you can't block every starting spot. There's 7 on the board. So, but that is to be able to res somebody out of action is key. Because as we said, you're trying to do so many things with so many guys, and you only have X number of moves to do it.
And the same thing with because the warden has an upgrade that lets him res 2 people. I find that starts to be a little bit useful. Like I find resing 2 in a tight spot. It's okay.
He doesn't have an ability to res 2 people. He has an ability to move 3 people.
Oh, that's what it is.
But I think that's a trap as well. You rarely need to move 3 people.
Because you may just end up wasting.
Yeah. I wish he had an ability to res 2 people.
Because once you move, I mean, that's the problem. Like you can't just move them again. Yeah. Like it's not like it's once you move, you're there. I think that's something that, and that's a charge trap too, as a sort of a larger conversation about the game. Is that charging is great because like you get to attack and move, but like once you're done charging, your dude is sitting there, like it's a sitting duck. So then you can really, really punish a bad charge.
Yeah.
So
yeah, especially when you fluff it.
Which has happened to me.
I love ceaseless attacks. So this lets you, as a reaction, make another attack after an attack. So that obviously is that economy of action that you're looking for.
Amazing on the Harvester.
Yeah.
And then I think you have like one that if you fail your attack, you can just re-roll 2. So you can do that. Do one attack. If you flub, you re-roll it. If you succeed, then you roll again to do it again. Yeah. So you can, really, really like in a the turn that you need to do some damage, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. And there's some good generic cards that go into the thing, but we're talking mostly about the skeleton specific cards. And then like we won't cover it this time in terms of board placement, because you have to place the boards, and there's a lot of strategy around that can play into how you play skeletons and using shard falls and things like that. But that's kind of beyond the scope of our episode today. But certainly we can dive into.
There's I think you could essentially that'd probably be boring if you just talked for an hour about board placement, but I mean it's huge. Like we played a few games with like skeletons versus Garrick's Reavers, and you bottleneck my entire army into like this little thing, and I want to go in and smash, and I can't because I have to like trickle in one guy at a time, and then you could just set up your warden in a good spot, and you just like pokey with your spear and just kill dudes.
Yeah,
you're like 300.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of complexity to the game, even before the game even starts, placing the boards. Which side of the board do you use? There's 4 different options, basically. How you orientate it and how you line it up. It really plays, something you have to put some thought into. So, like, the game is complex on many... that's the beauty of Shadespire. It's simple, it's quite deep. Complex, but simple, yeah. Well, that's what makes any good game.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing. Like when we played the first game, it was easy. Obviously, like a couple of little rule fumbles here and there, but you kind of like the more you play, the more you kind of figure out how the stuff works and simple. But then it's the kind of game that that you think about like in your off time. It's like list building in AOS or 40k. Like you start thinking about your deck and you're like, oh yeah, man, like if I did that with the skeletons, and then and GW on their Facebook Underworlds website, they they have all these like great 2-card combos that are really, really, really fun, and then some of them I wouldn't have thought of. So there's like resources out there that are neat. There's actually one that's great that I think it posted recently. It's like one is you make the ground the shattering terrain, so everything takes wounds when they move around, and then you do a bellowing scream or triumphant roar. So you force your opponent to move. So basically you stand next to a bunch of dudes, you scream, everyone has to move, so you can kind of like cause 3 wounds on 3 different characters in a little 2-card combo. So.
Yeah. So that's kind of a brief coverage of all the warbands, kind of their flavor and how they play. Certainly recommend diving into one or more of them just to check it out. Just want to step back for a minute from the specifics of the game and just kind of look holistically at Shadespire as a whole, or really we should be calling it Warhammer Underworlds : Shadespire.
Yes.
Potentially there could be Warhammer Underworlds : other settings. That's
Realm of Fire.
Yeah, that's the same game, but does allow them to introduce more warbands. So really, I'm hopeful, and it looks like it is, that GW is supporting this game going forward, because they've got a website, they've got a library now, and a deck builder, which they don't even have for 40k, a building app. They have a deck builder on their website. They have 2 new warbands coming soon, and the potential for, like, it doesn't even have to be different factions, right? So skeletons, we could have zombies, we could have vampires, we could have ghosts, we could have all sorts of
a Sylvaneth warband,
exactly.
Like a Nurgle like a Maggotkin warband, which feels like that. I mean, that'll straight up for sure be in the next sort of expansion. Like they're going to have a cool Nurgle.
So hopefully we're going to end up with, like, I don't know, 15, 20 possible warbands out there with more boards, more settings. Maybe different settings will have more global rules, like everybody takes 1 damage when they walk on the fire plane or something. I don't know, but like there's so much potential here. So hopefully it's not going to drop like a lot of the other board games do. And I don't think it
so.
will.
Like, because this one feels like it's built in with like it's not like was it Gore Chosen or like those little one-off, like they're fun, they're great, but they feel like they're one-off little experiments. Whereas this, like, I think what will really help, I mean, I think that's the plan for this year, is that when they start doing these organized like tournament events, like organized play, like I'm really looking forward to like our first couple of local Shadespire tournaments, because like it feels like it's not like a super long day, it's because most tournaments sometimes you're busy, you can't take a whole day to play 40k every month or something. But if it's like you can play a tournament in in an afternoon kind of thing, then that's not bad. So
yeah. And what was I going to say? I can't remember now. But it just looks like going forward, it's going to be like well supported.
I can't wait for this game and the Fire Slayers, and probably I'm less excited about like the second Stormcast faction and the second Khorne faction, but I'm sure like if the deck plays fun and the army's good, then. Like so far, like the game is interestingly balanced. I'm really curious because this is kind of I like that they take their time with it, because I find like if they release one faction that just is like is garbage, or one faction that is like really strong and like that one card that just like mucks the whole game up, like like Hearthstone and some of these other living card game kind of things have been notorious for having, like, if the balance isn't quite right, it can just really like ruin some stuff.
Well, you know what bodes well for Shadespire is there's people out there that play Shadespire that don't play 40k or AOS, first of all.
Right, yeah.
Second of all, they got it into the big box stores, which is what they wanted to do, obviously, but that's a different audience, And then if you watch any of the sort of big board game YouTube channels, they don't normally cover GW stuff, but they covered Shadespire, and
like was
actually,
it like Geek and Sundry or something?
I think Geek and Sundry,
or board Game Geek, or
Dice
one of those
Tower, all that stuff. And actually, I think it was Dice. I can't remember. I was watching top 10 games of 2017. I think it was Dice Tower. What's that guy's name? Tom Vassell. Tom Vassell. Anyway, they rated it in their top 10 of all board games released in 2017, which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like a GW miniature-based game, right? So I think the future is bright for Shadespire, hopefully. Otherwise, I have some cool models to use for AOS, which they say we can.
yeah, they have points, and they have I sadly they don't have any of the armies that I play, so I don't know where I would. I guess I could slot my Iron Jaws in my destruction list, I guess. But yeah.
Just like a roving band of mercenaries.
Yeah, there you go. Just show up with the Warfang. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I hope that gives people enough flavor to encourage people to go out and check out Shadespire, pick up a warband, share a box with somebody, and just get playing, because it really is that good. You won't regret it. It's not the big financial and time and effort outlay that 40K or AOS is, and we love those games, but sometimes you only got a 45-minute window and you just whip out a Shadespire.
Is that what we? Yeah, that's basically what we did the other day, right? Like
we even play while our kids are having a play date. Like it's that.
That was amazing. That's another thing too. For like, I call it like, this is like, as a gaming dad, like this checks a lot of boxes. Like, it's basically my way to play a game, like, while basically your daughter and my son are playing in the house, right? So
yeah, it's awesome. We can do it while the kids are playing. Yeah. All right, cool. We have a few questions. Only managed to post up.
Yeah, you had some good ones.
Because I wasn't sure if we were doing our cast tonight with Crispy and Six, so I didn't post some enough time to get a lot of questions. But we have a couple questions. So Andrew Weber, of course, is a member of CanHammer. He just bought the game. He's posted some pictures of him painting up Steel Hearts.
That's him. Cool. I was wondering who was painting those.
Yeah, no, that's Andrew. And cool. He actually lives just around the corner from where I work, which is funny. But he asked, is it better to learn the rules and then play, or learn the rules through playing? Learn
through playing.
I think both. It takes you 5 minutes to read the rule book. And you end up, if you learn through playing, you will end up referring back to the rulebook many times, unless you learn to play through playing with somebody who already knows how to play. But
yeah, I think that really helps. Like having like a someone who kind of can guide you through. Like obviously, like we when we started playing, we read the rule books, but like I read a little. I didn't think I actually had the rule book. I read like the quick start guide, then you were there to you had played a bit, or you had read the stuff.
Well, Jason and Ryan both played their first games with us. And
Jason, Ryan, and who else played with us? We had someone else. Oh, and Roddy.
And Roddy, yeah. It's totally playable first time with somebody. And so, you could do both and you'd be perfectly fine. Take one game and you get the hang of it.
I mean, if you're local to Ottawa, then hit us up. We'll definitely, like, I love this game, so I can't wait to play. So
yeah. Hey, you want to play after this? No.
I would. I mean, I'm going to be up. I'm going to be up till 5 a.m. with the baby anyway. So might as well play Shadespire.
Andrew also asked, are any teams broken? I think we did kind of cover that. At the moment, things actually seem like I could cream you one game, you'll cream in the very next game, or it could be very close. Like it's not random, but it's almost kind of it's balanced, if you consider that balanced, because it can go either way right now, and nobody really knows what's super strong and what's super not strong. But
you mitigate risks with the way you build your decks and your cards. So obviously, like if you're just throwing, because I think when we played my first Corn game, and I just put a deck together willy nilly. And I could tell, this isn't doing what I wanted to do. Then I just deck tweaked a little bit, and then the second game went much better for me because I was able to play with what I wanted. But I think at the moment, like we went through, like everyone plays differently. You're basically playing to the strength of your army, so you're not really you are reacting to your opponent in some ways, but the key to your victory is in your hands a lot of the time.
Well, I think if you're always going to play with the same person with the same factions, your two decks could become very well balanced and tuned to each other, and you'd have very close games. But I think if you're playing in a wider environment where there's people with new decks and new things, then you have to make your deck and stuff more broad ranging. Then I think it can be. I think it's super balanced.
This is Magic the Gathering again. Like a group of players that always play the same deck and play each other like week after week. You end up like tailoring to your list. Like if you play against there's a lot of objective cards in this game. Like there's one that's like, well, kill 5 or more models or something, or 5 or more models are dead. Like obviously it's easier to do against, like if you're playing against a Bloodbound guy or against the Skeletons. But if you're playing against the Steelheart Champions, then it's a lot harder to have all these these characters die, right? So I think that's the whole other issue. I think in tournament play that could be interesting if they allow sideboarding, like having the ability to swap out a couple of cards in order to help against a difficult matchup. I definitely think that certain factions are a little bit strong against certain other ones. Like there's a bit of an edge, but you have ways of mitigating that. So I think everyone seems pretty balanced. So
yep. Hui asks that first of all, he says it's awesome to hear that Shadespire is getting some CanHammer love. Well, we do have 6 bat reps on the YouTube channel, so
some hilarious multiplayer ones.
We don't love it, yeah.
Love
and so his question: how often do you play with more than 2 players on the same board?
We played twice multiplayer games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if it was up to me, like in a perfect Shadespire evening, it'd be cool if you get like 4 players over to play some games. You play like a few like 1v1. So basically, have 2 1v1 games kind of going head to head, and then close the night out with like a big multiplayer game. So because the multiplayer is it's a bloodbath. It's stupid. It's fun. Like it's just you're like rolling dice and stuff's dying, and so I think in the right setup. It's great. I think it's better with 4 than with 3, though.
I think if you play a lot of multiplayer, like that's how you choose to play, then you can definitely tune your deck to multiplayer. So, like my single 1v1 skeleton deck was completely useless against 3 or 4 players. Like it was so stupid because on one objective in my zone, and it was not.
Whereas a Nork smashing and fighting deck is like
work, right?
It's great because you're gonna fight anyone, so you just. But yeah, and I think it's worth noting that if you're going to play multiplayer, if you're going to experiment with it, there are these generic board setups that they recommend for multiplayer instead of having players alternate with board placement. I would actually recommend using those set templates because they balance the board so that you're not stuck with one player just like camping in his own zone and never getting to fight the other ones, or having someone stuck in the middle and just being on the receiving end of 2 flanks of players, right? So, so I think that's a nice way of they have these cool like little like some of them like crosses or squares or so having a nice open board where everyone can get at everyone. I think is a bit better. So,
yeah. So, hang on. For some reason, the page is reloaded. Get to these questions. All right. So, how closely connected is Shadespire to malign portents? I don't think it's connected at all.
I've got a feeling that they might actually, because right now, like the lore of like Shadespire has its own like lore, right? Like I haven't read any of the books, but like it does involve it is like one of Nagash's sort of like pet projects, right? Like it feels like it has a Nagash spin to it.
Well, I think there's obviously lore connections because it's based off the Age of Sigmar, and it's to do with Nagash, and Malign Portents is to do with Nagash, but I'm not sure that there's going to be any precise crossover.
There might be like I think they're probably going to do like some like it'd be cool like little whispers of it, like in one of their like in the campaign books for Malign Portents that they mention like, oh, this takes place in the City of Glass or whatever. So they might. I don't know. There's some opportunities there. It definitely has like a lore component, but yeah.
Do you think there will be other Warhammer Underworld games? We already said that hopefully there will be. Mostly just kind of changing the setting and maybe some sort of global rules or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Warhammer Underworld's like Gairan or something. It's like it's in the realm of life boards because they do mention in the game, like in the game setup, the way that you pick is like each basically players has their stack of boards. Right now there's only two double-sided boards, but it feels like when you place your boards down, if you have like your Realm of Fire boards or your like Realm of Life boards or like your Nurgle Maggotkin boards, you'll be able to just like cycle through your deck of boards and decide which board you'll put down. So you might have half of it will be Shadespire, the City of Glass one, the other half might be like the Realm of Fire one. So I think there's going to be, this ability to pick and choose your boards. So. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, how if they do come out with new realms, like one board is on fire and the other one's like old school Shadespire, then putting those two together might look a little bit weird, but maybe there's going to be a way they're going to do it. I don't know.
Maybe there's like a lore sort of version. Like or that it feels like GW will kind of like find a way to make that work.
They'll find a way.
It's it's a million different dimensions within a dimension, something. So there's ways of portals, man. It's all about portals.
It's all about portals. Yeah. Okay, Phil. If you have any one faction from AOS in Shadespire, what would you want?
Well, I mean Skaven, but I mean I think that's already showing up. So other than Skaven, I would really like Seraphon.
Seraphon.
I would love a faction of Seraphon where like you have like two of your dudes are skinks, you have one big Croxagore and like a couple stores, like that's your warband.
They won't fit on a little hex.
Oh, so like a small, maybe Croxagore maybe a bit big. Like that, you'd have like an eternal, like an Eternity Warden and a Saurus and then a couple of skinks. Like that would be your warband, right? So a lot like Blood Bowl, I guess. Like basically anything in Blood Bowl in Shadespire would be great. So
cool. I would go for like Flesh Eater, like.
Oh yeah,
because that's my favorite death faction, and it'd be cool if there was like a zombie or like a crypt horror type style warband with like a king and like a courtier and like a few like ghouls and like maybe like 5 models.
Yeah.
And like they're like very thematic cards where they like eat things or.
I think though. Like if I were a betting man, I'd say that you're one of the next wave of factions you'll definitely see an Urgle one with like putrid Blight Kings and sort of the equivalent. I think that'll be the next one of the next like three Blight Kings. That'd be sweet. Like the sort of like factions. Like very resilient and so I think that would probably be it.
You have Khorne and like Bloodletters.
Oh, Siege, man! I wouldn't even think about those guys, like Zangors and stuff. Oh man,
so much potential.
do you have like let's say like what's the word I'm looking for? Your wish list about the new factions and what you think they like the ones that we know are coming, especially like the Skaven and the Fireslayers. You kind of have an idea of what you think they might look like.
No. Not really thought about it.
I've spent too much time. Skaven are going to be 5 bodies at least. They're going to have movement at least 5. They're going to be faster than Khorne, weaker in combat, and I think their decks are going to be with lots of sneaky cards like Stealing Glory and like using your cards in order to generate more wounds. And I think they're probably going to inspire by running away. Like I wouldn't be surprised. That's their whole mechanic is like you get inspired if you like run away. And then I think Fireslayers are going to be slow like Stormcast, 4 bodies. They're going to be good fighters like Orcs. And I think that they might have these like Urgold mechanics about trying, like if you get an objective, like you get more glory or something. Like I think like they might be like brawling guys with like objective based, glory stuff.
What would be really cool is if they could all throw their axes.
That would be wicked. If they have more ranged attacks, like a few of them have like have like a 2 hex like 1 damage, but like at a distance. Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet to make up for slow speed.
Yeah, man, so excited for being fat.
So excited. Although the Skaven, the pictures they released, like I was a little bit disappointed because they seemed like they were pretty generic. I was kind of expecting like like a Night Runner, like an assassin Skaven in there, and like maybe like a Warlock Engineer with a pistol, but they're pretty just like clan rats, right? Like clan rats with like a storm vermin as the leader. So
yeah. The final question says, has Chris played more Shadespire or Love Letter? Well, I don't know. He certainly plays some Shadespire. And will Darren upload a video of him playing against Chris a round of Love Letter? No, but I would actually like to play Chris in Shadespire at some point. But he lives in the boonies, and now
we tried that with that one time, but it's a bit tricky.
Now he actually has to work too, so it's kind of difficult. But
I think I will have to do a big weekend, like a 4-player weekend of Shadespire. Try to get 8 games in.
And Ben at Multizone and Dylan, they are trying to get some of the organized play packages that comes with all the price support and stuff. And the minute he does, we're putting on a Shadespire tournament. So, and there may be Shadespire Capital City. We don't know.
That'd be a cool Friday night thing. If there's enough momentum going into it with all these organized events leading up to it, then maybe you do it on a Friday night. sort of like a one night thing. So
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Phil, for joining us on this first inaugural Shadespire podcast.
Pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And if you want us to do more Shadespire podcasting, please let us know. Please leave us a review, hopefully a good one, but any review is good on iTunes. That helps people to find us, and that's probably the most helpful thing you can help us to promote the podcast on iTunes. Otherwise, feel free to also support us on Patreon if you'd like to support what we're doing. The support we get on Patreon supports everything we do, Facebook, YouTube, as well as the podcast. So please consider supporting us. And hopefully Chris will be recovered from his Nurgle's rot the next time, and we'll probably be coming back to you with... I'd like to talk about Custodies personally, but we'll see. He doesn't.
Are you guys going to talk about Maggotkin? Probably. I'm sure you're going to do like a Maggotkin.
Well, probably, but we'd have to get like John or there's a lot of Nurgle players around, so we can probably get like a big round table or something. But yeah.
Well, I'll be playing a lot of Nurgle in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Baby willing. So I'll let you know what I think.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Phil. And for everybody listening, have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you for completing this episode of CanHammer. If you'd like more information on what we do, our YouTube channel, or any events we run, see CanHammer.ca. If you would like to donate to the show, you can visit patreon.com/CanHammer, where you can donate and subscribe, and you'll get some sick rewards. If donating is not your thing, then just leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That really helps us get recognized and helps new people find the show. So with that, hopefully we'll see you on the battlefield.